Hi, my name is Derek. I'm the pastor here at Crossroads Victory Church. Today we're going to be talking about heavy glory. Now, I don't want to just teach you about the heavy glory of the Lord. I want this to be something that you encounter. No matter who you are, no matter what you're facing, maybe you're an atheist and you say, I know there's no God. I want you to experience the heavy glory of God. Maybe you're an agnostic person and you would say, look, I'm on a journey. I don't know what's right and what's wrong, if there is a God or if there's not, or who he is, but I just know that I haven't found what I'm looking for. I want you to experience the heavy glory of God. Maybe you feel alone in this season. You feel lonely. Maybe you're looking for peace. Maybe you're feeling helplessness. Maybe you're feeling pain in your body. Maybe you're addicted to things. I want you to encounter the heavy glory of the Lord. Maybe you're a mummy and you're exhausted right now trying to look after little ones. Or maybe you're a daddy like me that's looking to our current situation and looking to the future and wondering how we can protect our children and prepare them for the days ahead. I want us to encounter the heavy glory of the Lord. I remember one summer day when I was younger, I was on the back side of the schoolyard playing soccer with some neighborhood kids. And as I was going for the ball on this particular play, I went and instead of kicking the ball, I kicked this neighborhood kid right in the shins. And when I did that, he completely lost his mind. And he threw me to the ground and he started punching my head and pounding my face. And I started screaming and I was trying to protect myself because even though he was a skinny kid, he was 14 years old. I mean, I was a skinny kid too, but I was only about eight at the time. So he was beating me up pretty good. I felt pretty helpless at that point in time. Like, there's no way I can win this fight. I was being overwhelmed until there was another kid who was playing with us, and he was kind of known as the heavyweight of the playground. He was actually a pretty mellow kid. His name was George. But this big kid went up to this guy who was pounding me, picked him up, threw him over, flipped him on the ground, and the kid ran away. Have you ever got into a situation where you feel small, where you feel like the situation is not good, where you do not know if you can overcome, where you feeling a little helpless? If you have ever been in such a situation, you need a heavyweight to back you up. Now, King David, he was a man of God, as we know. He's called a man after God's own heart, and he's also known as a warrior. I mean, he was strong, but he got himself into bad spots too in life. And I'm not exactly sure what was going on in his life, but in Psalms 38, we can read about a pretty low point for him when he was in somewhat of a pit of despair. So I'll start reading in Psalm chapter 38, verse 3. Because of your anger, my whole body is sick. My health is broken because of my sins. My guilt overwhelms me. It is a burden too heavy to bear. My wounds fester and stink because of my foolish sins. I am bent over and racked with pain. All day long I walk around filled with grief. A raging fever burns within me, and my health is broken. I am exhausted and completely crushed. My groans come from an anguished heart. So not only was David's body in pain and broken, but his heart, his soul was weighed down and anguished. You know what I long for, Lord. You hear my every sigh. My heart beats wildly. My strength fails, and I'm going blind. Sounds like he's in a pretty rough situation, that his condition is not good at all. Verse 11 of Psalm 38. My loved ones and friends stay away, fearing my disease. Even my own family stands at a distance. So not only is he going through this torment, but his family is staying away from him. He's feeling abandoned. And then it gets worse. Meanwhile, my enemies lay traps to kill me. Those who wish me harm make plans to ruin me. All day long they plan their treachery. So this is the condition that King David found himself in, a pretty hopeless state. But David knew who to trust, or he eventually got there. And we can read about his response in Psalms 40, starting verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me. So when David was looking for a heavyweight, he looked for the Lord. He knew that the Lord could help him. Now that Lord, capital L-O-R-D, is Yahweh, also known as Jehovah. It means the self-existent one, the self-sufficient one, the one that doesn't have any needs, but he meets every need. And that's the one that David, his God, he was going to help him. And it says, I waited patiently for the Lord. Now that word waited in the Hebrew is kavah. And kavah is not just a passive waiting where you're just kind of letting time go by, hoping God's going to intervene and do something. But what kavah means is to bind together by twisting, almost like a picture of epoxy. Now, epoxy has two parts. You have the resin and the hardener. And until those two are mixed together, they're not going to harden. But you mix those two things together and you stir them. When you do that, a chemical reaction occurs and heat is produced. And after time, that thing sets up hard. That thing sets up strong. And that's what David was doing. Even though he was in a pit of despair, he went to the Lord and said, I'm going to kavah with you. I'm going to bind with you. I'm looking to you for help. And that's what I want us to learn to do, is no matter what situation we are in, to come to the Lord, trusting that he is our help, and to bind together with him, to practice this in our life, to kavah with the Lord. Now, what happens when you mix epoxy, if there's dirt in there or if there's water in there and you mix it up, it's not going to harden because there's impurities. So I'm just going to share some of my journey with you as I learn to wait on the Lord, kavah with the Lord, interface with the Lord. When I first started getting serious about the Lord, I remember I would start praying, and as I would be praying, some things would show up in my mind, even perverse things, and I would get very frustrated about it, and I would talk to the Lord and say, when I'm praying to you, I have to face this junk, and so I backed off and stopped praying. Now, what I believe was happening there was, when I was younger, I didn't always guard my imagination. And as I was interfacing with the Lord, these things would come to the surface. And the Lord was allowing them to come to the surface so he can help me deal with them. And so these impurities could be removed from me so I could connect with him on a deeper level and be brought to a place of strength. Other times when I would connect with the Lord, sometimes I would pray, sometimes I would just sit and wait and just wait on the Lord. And I remember sometimes a frequency would come in the room and would buzz in my ear. Now this sounds weird, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I'm just mentioning to you that when we engage with the Lord or we're seeking the Lord, sometimes we don't exactly know how to seek the Lord. Now, I wasn't sure, is this from the Lord? Because I knew it was in the Spirit, or is this a demonic frequency, a demonic thing? I didn't know. But I continued to persist and seek the Lord, and I would say things like, in my prayer, if you are not of the Lord, if you will not confess that Jesus Christ came to this earth in a human body, then I command you to leave. And if you are from the Lord, stay. And the Holy Spirit is good at teaching us. And I no longer hear frequency when I spend time with the Lord. Another thing that happened for about 2 years as I would spend time with the Lord is oftentimes I would be in prayer and I would have a vision, or it was like I could see inside myself, and I was punching the air. I was angry and I was yelling and I was punching the air. There's a lot of frustrations inside of me at the time. And I remember being frustrated. Why am I seeing myself punch the air? And I even read about the Apostle Paul, and he said, I'm not shadowboxing here. And I'm thinking, great, I'm shadowboxing. And this would happen quite frequently. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who to talk to about it. So eventually, I went to Sarah. After seeing this for like a year, I went to my wife and I said, sometimes when I'm praying, I see myself and I'm punching the air. And she said, you're just going to have to go to God and figure it out, which was pretty good advice. And what I think happened was, through life, sometimes we have hurts and traumas, and I think part of my soul fractured a bit, and there were some negative emotions attached to that fracture of my soul, and I had to go to the Lord. And after spending time with him, he helped me deal with that anger, with the frustrations. And the Lord is amazing, and he brought my soul my heart to a place of oneness. And so it took some time, but I no longer see inside of me myself punching the air. I'm just trying to explain the process that the Lord has brought me in, how it hasn't happened quickly, but the Lord, as I've engaged with him and interfaced with him, he brings things to the surface, and he is bringing them to the surface because he wants to help you deal with them. And oftentimes, as I've spent time with the Lord, and that might look like I'm just sitting in a chair after prayer, after reading my Bible, and just waiting for him, maybe 30 or 40 minutes or maybe even an hour. And as I'm doing that, just waiting, I'm not even talking, not even thinking thoughts, but my mind is focused on him. Oftentimes I'll feel something shift. I'll feel like he's here like he wasn't before, even though I know God is everywhere and his presence is always with me. But it's at that point where I start feeling the manifested presence of God. And what started happening was sometimes I would feel this weight, and it would come here. It would come and rest here on me. And what I was experiencing was I would get up at 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, because I had to go off to work. And I only had time maybe to read one chapter of the Bible, spend a little bit of time with the Lord, because the day was full. But I found as I prioritized doing that with the Lord, sometimes in the middle of the day, when I was least expecting it, I would feel the Lord. I would feel his weight upon me, the manifested weight of God. And even the other day, it was a couple days ago, I was at my computer, I was working, I was doing something, and now when I'm doing something, sometimes I'm goal-oriented. I just want to get it done. I push through just to get it done, but I felt the weight come, the weight of the Lord, the manifested glory of the Lord, and I had a decision to make. Was I going to continue to do what I was going to do? But I chose, no, the weight of the Lord. I will shift what I'm doing. I want to wait on him. And oftentimes as I'm waiting on the Lord and just interfacing with him in that way, oftentimes I'll be delivered of something, or he'll bring something in my heart that was fractured. He'll bring it into a oneness. And it's a time where the Lord makes you strong. It's a time where he removes impurities out of you. And so I encourage you to do these things. And I want you to encounter the weight of God, the manifested glory of God like this. But it takes time. You have to choose. How are you going to spend your time? You can tell if you put weight on the Lord by if you spend time with him and you give him your time. If you give him your time and you diligently seek him, there's a reward for you. So back to David, he was getting beat up really bad in his life. He was broken in his body. His soul was completely overwhelmed. His spirit was broken also. But he waited patiently for the Lord. So back to Psalms 40. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me, and he heard my cry. This is what happens when we turn to the Lord. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. It's okay. It's okay if you're in addiction right now. You can go to the Lord. If you've made bad mistakes, things you wish you didn't do, your life's in turmoil right now, the last thing you're going to want to do is to go and spend time with the Lord. Because in order to do that, you're going to have to confront the things that you've done. You may have to confront the things that have happened to you. But if you can push through and make that choice like David did, I will wait on the Lord. He will respond and he will answer to you. And if you are in a deep, muddy mire of filth, of sin, of whatever it is, he lifted me out of the pit of despair. This is what the Lord does. Out of the mud and the mire, he set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. Who could help David in his state, in the pit of despair? Nobody could have helped him, but the Lord helped him, and he will help you. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. Oh, the joys of those who trust the Lord, who have no confidence in the proud or those who worship idols. O Lord, my God, you have performed many wonders for us. Your plans for us are too numerous to list. You have no equal. So to trust in the Lord is to give him weight. Now, when I was a kid, I used to go over to my grandma and grandpa's apartment, or my grandma and papa's apartment, and they had an old scale. And along with the scale was a wooden box with some brass weights in the box. Now, I used to like playing with it. We would put different toys on one side of the scale and then put different weights to try to balance out what was on the scale. And it's pretty obvious, but the heavier the thing on one side, the bigger the weight you need on the other side. So bring this to your condition or your situation. The heavier or the bigger the thing that you are facing in this moment, the bigger the weight you are going to need on the other side to counterbalance it. You're going to need a heavy weight if you have a heavy problem or you got a heavy situation on your plate. You're going to need a heavy weight to counterbalance whatever you are facing. So when David was facing this bad situation, he looked to the Lord. So who are you looking to in your current situation? Do we realize I can't trust in anybody, so I just put my weight in myself? I trust in myself. And to believe in ourselves is a good thing, but can we really trust ourselves when we're in a bad state, a bad situation? Can we really pull ourselves out of every situation? No, we cannot. We have to do like David did and put our weight, put our trust on the Lord. Now, in the Old Testament, Moses was a man and he was getting to know the Lord. And the Lord revealed himself to Moses as Yahweh. And Moses asked the Lord, a very bold question. In Exodus 33:18, the Lord asked Moses, "Will you show me your glory?" Now that word glory in the Hebrew is kabod or kavod. The pronunciation may not be there, but what it means is weight. Show me your weight in a good sense. Show me your significance. Now today in our society, there are many people that feel or maybe think that God is irrelevant, that he does not interfere with us, that the Bible is irrelevant, the church is irrelevant. They would hold God as a very small or insignificant weight. But Moses asked, "Show me your weight. Show me your significance." In 2 Chronicles 7:1-3, Solomon had just finished building the temple, and the priests went in there to minister, and they put a sacrifice in there. And this is what it says in 2 Chronicles 7:1-3. When Solomon finished praying, fire flashed down from heaven and burnt up the burnt offering and sacrifices, and the glorious presence of the Lord filled the temple. The glorious presence of the Lord, that's the kabod. That's the heavy weight of God filled the temple. The priests could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glorious presence of the Lord filled it. They could not stand. They could not minister in that place anymore. They found themselves on their face before the Lord. And that's why I want to see you encounter the Lord, encounter his heavy glory. It will bring you to a place of repentance. It will bring you to a place of the fear of the Lord. It will bring you on your face. And this is what the priest said. And all the people, when all the people of Israel saw the fire coming down and the glorious presence of the Lord filling the temple, they fell down on the ground and worshiped and praised the Lord, saying, "He is good. His faithful love endures forever." I want you to encounter the manifested heavyweight glory of Yahweh. It will change your life. God is for you. If he is for you, nothing can stand against you. No matter whatever situation, whatever condition you are in, whatever fear has you, whatever addiction has you, whatever infirmity has you, the heavy glory of God's gonna free you. My wife Sarah and I, we used to be missionaries in Papua, Indonesia. We lived in a semi-nomadic tribe on a mountain ridge. And I remember one day, my wife was pregnant and things were not looking good. She had some medical problems. And we had a serious need. We were in a situation. I needed medical help, but there was a problem. There was no medical help around. I had a sat phone. I called a doctor. I got some advice, but there was no doctor that could get to me. I called the pilot and said, "We need a medevac," but they said the helicopter is taken in pieces. It's apart for service right now. We can't get to you. And those pilots were heroes, man. They went in to help us on a number of occasions. They served the people selflessly. Doctors and nurses over there helped the people and helped us on many occasions. But I found myself in a place where I can't put my weight on nurses. I can't put my weight on doctors. I can't put my weight on anybody except the Lord. It's like I only had one weight left in my bin, and that was the heavyweight glory of God. So I said, "God, I've got no option. I got to trust in you." And the Lord showed himself powerful. The Lord protected not only my wife, but our young child, and our child was born healthy and strong. And I thank the Lord that he was there for me. And through such times, the Lord taught me, man, we can appreciate people, but our trust is to be put in the Lord. I mean, the Lord, He has designed the family, and he's designed community in church, and we are to live somewhat interdependently in building each other up, in helping one another, and that is good, but our trust is never to be in a person. Our trust needs to be in the Lord. In Isaiah 2, verse 22, it says, "Don't put your trust in mere humans. They are as frail as breath. What good are they?" And even in Jeremiah 17:5, it says, "This is what the Lord says. Cursed are those who put their trust in mere humans, who rely on human strength and turn their hearts away from the Lord." So if you have been dependent on other people, or if you have been depending on everything else but God, it's time to refocus on the Lord. He's the heavyweight. He is the heavy glory to help you and to give you victory in whatever situation you find yourself in, because we know that Jesus, our King, he has earned victory for us. And we fight and we stand in a place of victory when we're with him. I had a friend who used to say, "Jesus is number one, but I'm a 0. But when I'm with Jesus, I'm a perfect 10." And isn't that true? When we're with Jesus, we're a perfect 10. We cannot lose. We can go through things, but the Lord will be with us. He's a help in trouble. He's a help in the time of need. And we know that Jesus, he was in a time of need. He was beat up real bad. His beard was ripped off. He was whipped. He was mocked. They nailed him to a cross. And he found himself abandoned, even to the place he called out to his Father and said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And he needed to be forsaken because he took the curses and the sin of the world upon himself. All our sin, all your sin, all my sin on himself, all that filth, and he put it to death. And there was no glory there on the cross as he was dying, because the cross is a picture of a curse. And the Bible says that cursed is everyone who has died on a tree or is nailed to a cross. But we know that even though Jesus died in that way, he rose up with resurrected power, with glory. So all praise and glory be to God forever and ever. And even though Jesus was forsaken, it is promised that the Lord, he will never leave you or forsake you. Even in the Apostle Paul, in his journeys through all his persecutions and whatever he carried, the weight that he carried. One time he was being accused and he was being brought to court, and he was suffering. And he says in 2 Timothy 4:16, he says, "At my first defense, nobody stood with me. Everybody abandoned me. Let it not be attributed to against them. Let it not be accounted against them." But then he says, "But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me." So even if everybody abandons you, even if the situation is horrible, the Lord will never abandon you. He will strengthen you. He will strengthen you with his heavy weight, with his heavy glory that is there to free you, to help you, to surround you, to protect you, to help you walk through troubles, to be with you in trouble, to bring you out of trouble, to rescue you. And so that's good news.
Save me.